Hello, I'm Berger. I'm with Ferrara, candy company, largest sugar candy company in the world. And my role is Senior Director of Strategic Growth Projects. I'm thinking about how we expand our business, whether that be new markets or white spaces within the category or new categories.
Erika, Grinius. I am I'm a senior manager of the media strategy planning team for Walgreens, and I focus on the pharmacy campaign for Walgreens, so the media strategy for things like immunizations, which hopefully all of you have gotten after flu shot or your COVID booster. So please go to Walgreens for that. Medicare is another big pharmacy campaign. So we really, and we think about like how we're growing our business. We're really, from the media perspective, thinking about acquisition really, so using those dollars to really reach new customers, and a new customer for us on the pharmacy side would be an existing who is shops our store for beauty or OTC products, but actually doesn't come and get their pharmacy scripts from us or immunizations from us. So that could be an acquisition opportunity for us too.
And I'm Andrea Bingen. I work with PepsiCo. My role at PepsiCo is that I'm the Senior Director of Foresight, Trends, and Demand. I don't know if that means a lot, but basically, I'm part of a growth capabilities group within our insights function. And my team looks after those three capabilities. So looking far out into the future with Foresight, understanding humans and how they're changing in the midterm with trends, and then measuring what's going on today with demand. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's start with understanding humans. So for $1,000. So what is it about humans that you guys are looking for PepsiCo in the future? What are the variables that you gotta narrow it down to?
Well, it's a really good question because as an insights person, people come up to me all the time and say, well, what are people going to do in the future? and I say, well, that depends. So there's more than one future, there's more than one thing that happens, and really it depends on how the world around people changes. And so really we have to start with understanding what are the forces of change in the world that are going to be relevant, that are going to shape people's lives, and therefore we will behave differently as a result, right? We didn't just start staying home a couple of years ago because we wanted to, or there was some marketing campaign about it. We stayed home because the world changed around us, and that's what then accelerated all kinds of other changes in behavior. So we start that question when we're thinking about foresights anyway, with, well, how might the world change? Looking at multiple possibilities for how the world will change, and then saying, well, what do we know about people that is always going to be true, and how can we expect people to change in a new set of circumstances?
What's one truth about people that won't change?
It's a great question. We will continue to eat. Food will continue to be at the center of culture. Yeah, some of these things. I think, when I think about the pandemic and how we could have expected that in a time of scare, right? People, when they're feeling uncomfortable, when they're feeling scared, they go back to what comforts them, right? So they're looking for brands they trust. They're looking for things that are comforting. We know that that's how people react to big uncertainty and change and scariness in the world. This one happened to also be sort of a medical crisis, right? So brands like Gatorade, who I think you heard from this morning, grew because that's associated with something that I need to stay healthy, right? And it's a brand I trust. So anyway, that's an example of a fundamental.
That's really insightful. So in regards to pharmacy, what did we learn about COVID? And what is the future now that your firm is taking in to get ready for, hopefully not the next one, but something like that?
Yeah, we really grew quite a bit, obviously, during COVID, but not just, initially it was really just like using our pharmacists, like sort of trust to share information about what was happening with COVID, as everybody was just trying to be hit with misinformation. So really trying to establish our pharmacists as that authority around the disease, but like then obviously we moved right into testing and vaccinations, and that really like almost took over the business for a while, for a couple of years. I think what we've learned is that we can move very quickly when we want to, and we can, you know, update our website every day if we need to, and you know, we can, you know, try to like prepare for things in the future. Right now, we're, you know, obviously rolling out a new COVID booster that's like very different the way it's being rolled out, but we're still able to kind of use the same like structure to get people in the door and to hopefully get them their shot quickly and conveniently. I think what we still haven't figured out is like how to, you know, how to grow from that. You know, I think it was kind of a once and hopefully a once in a lifetime event. So like, what's gonna like fill that hole now? And obviously we're running this transformative journey right now into a healthcare company from a more traditional retail business, and it's been rocky. So I think we're learning as we go and trying to figure out how to become that healthcare expert for the country. So.
Wow. So in the white space that you have to figure out, and it's products that you sell that are often bring comfort into people's lives and they enjoy them. Where are you seeing that combination coming together?
Yeah, it's interesting because we saw, like almost every business represented here, we saw a ton of change because of COVID. What we didn't foresee that we're building on now is a lot of that change stayed as it relates to the confection industry. So one example of that is out-of-home consumption. Previously, you know, specifically I work on sugar candy, which is non-chocolate. That was something that was a treat outside of the home. You would think it's kid-focused, but it's actually not. Adults consume a lot of sugar candy. But it was something that people didn't really bring inside their homes, and now they do. Because of COVID, instead of forgoing on those occasions, they added occasions, and then when they entered back into the world, they didn't really revert back. So I think one thing that we're trying to think about is this going to ever revert back? Now we're 3 years out. We feel comfortable that people are going to continue to eat candy inside the home, and think that that is a place that now sugar candy is welcomed and celebrated and used as a treat or reward for oneself or family. And so what do we do with that now? How do we think about our business now that those occasions have expanded for what we hope is long term?
So, keeping with that, are you seeing the organization change amongst who the peers are with whom you're working to take advantage of these learnings? How is that? Has there been any future-based way of thinking about the future?
Yeah, I mean, I share the statistic, but we, speaking with my head of consumer insights, and that budget has grown 145% in the last year because there's so much we need to learn about the future. So I think that's one way we've like significantly expanded the way that we're actually approaching research. But every type of research on ROI, research on you know, consumer behavior, consumer habits, tying all that together. So that's one way we've changed the org. We've also started thinking a lot more about our brands individually and kind of shaping those up as they
Instead
grow.
of a portfolio.
It's certainly a portfolio strategy, but it's very much each brand has a specific role that might sound very nascent and very, you know, especially for someone like PepsiCo, like, yeah, of course. But I think they were pretty small before, so they didn't really have this distinctive nature to them. And now we are defining that because expansion of occasions and opportunity that we're seeing and assessing. So that's really causing a big opportunity within the company to kind of think about growth in that way.
So back to your point about we can update websites faster because it was a national emergency. Notions of agility, right? So is that now trickling into your media strategy, to your media activation, that you're getting a faster return path on how you're doing across the media landscape?
I'm not sure we're necessarily getting results faster, but we definitely are operating faster and pivoting faster. So like, if we do have either insights coming from various sources or performance data coming back from our agency or from or something like that, we are able to make decisions much more quickly about what to do. And I think like as a media team, you kind of like own making that decision and kind of like asking permission later, right? Like from our brand teams potentially. So because like we just like don't want to like wait for, you know, several meetings to decide, oh, we should budget into this audience, or we should move away from that audience or that channel or that tactic. So I think some of that like mindset thinking is definitely continued.
I got a thought on agility and faster, because I think as I have started working with Foresight more, I realized there's a big difference between faster and agility. We can go faster, but it's pretty uncomfortable. And I don't know that there's going to be a lot of receptivity for everyone to keep going faster and faster, right? Like at some point you break. And so agility is different though, I think. Agility means that you've thought ahead, that you've tried to look around the corner, you've thought about what might be coming, and you sort of have an optionality mindset. You start experimenting with, well, what's possible? Could we do this? Could we do that? And you know, so agility is really about having a plan and being able to pick from a series of options that helps you make a move more quickly, but not because you ran faster, but because you planned ahead.
And so how are you planning ahead with the fragmentation of media and the consumer's choice? That's for everybody.
You know, I think I don't know that I don't think that we're thinking far enough ahead in a lot of areas.
Right.
You know,
Social media here to stay?
I think so. I have not seen any futures so far that didn't have social media. But
the government might have something to say about that.
Yeah, I know. They'll try. Yeah, but I think, you know, as long as social media continues to serve a need for people to connect, which is pretty fundamental, I think it will survive. It maybe changes form, you know, as privacy and all of these other things come into play. But the idea of people connecting virtually, I think, is an idea that's sort of at the core of humans.
Yeah, totally. Does anybody else want to?
It was a good answer. I think so. I'm noticing more and more the generational difference between, you know, quote unquote kids these days, right? Like they're so comfortable in the virtual, and we are not yet. And you know, having kids and being around kids at various ages, and you know, selling them products that interests children and young adults. I think that's a hard shift, and I think that's one that, at least speaking on behalf of us, we're still struggling with a little bit this idea that like we aren't comfortable exclusively virtual. I mean, we were talking about compulsory office attendance earlier in the break room. It's the same deal. There's so many different levels of comfortability with virtual, and I think from a media perspective, we need to start getting a lot more comfortable with the fragmentism that exists, because our consumer, at least my consumers, are very comfortable like that. They don't need to see it all knitted together the way that I think we're used to, because that's how we grew up in media, where we need to see this big picture plan where everything links, and we know. I don't think we're going to, and that feels tremendously uncomfortable to me, but I think it feels uncomfortable to a lot of us. Yeah.
Case in point, I have a 6-year-old who started talking about Chef Boyardee the other day. Which is a brand that I'm sure that it's a wonderful brand, but it's not one that it's great. It's not one that I have brought into my home in the last 6 years. So anyway, it was in Minecraft. So, you know, Minecraft, that's how he learned.
Oh, see, there you go. All right.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there will be some like consolidation, right? At some point there'll be consolidation, you know, like the streaming and stuff that we're having. It's kind of like, so let's because I have like, I don't know, 8 different subscriptions at least to things that I'm watching right now. But I feel like as marketers, media, like, I think we're just all become comfortable with that to a certain degree. I mean, I think it's just kind of now expected, but, and I think some ways at least we're trying to tackle it, like, I don't know, like our upfront buy, for example, like we're just shifting the way that we're like thinking about that, right? We're still buying linear TV, but we may not buy, we're not buying like Infinite Prime as much as we were before. you know, a lot of things are like moving away from that into like Hulu or whatever. So I think we're trying to think more strategically about that piece of it when we are like committing, right, to a broader investment. And I think we're just like trying, in terms of like other media platforms, we're thinking about how, what role does one DSP serve versus another for a particular task. And business like Walgreens, as you imagine, we have like basically 10 businesses in one. So like you can't like find a single solution that works for everybody. And so I think that it would be nice, but I don't think it's like realistic.
Do you guys get, and here's a question we didn't prep for. Do you guys think that brands can be media entities? Is there going to be, I mean, we see it in the retail sector, it's like different groups of the organization, right, to your point. But we talked about Gatorade earlier today. They're so powerful brands. Do we see a day when people are going to actually be associated to that property as a media place to go get information outside of what that brand stands for?
I think brand's already there
They're
somewhere.
there.
I mean, my brand is not there, but I mean,
Yeah.
Nike.
Yeah.
I mean, how much Nike content have we all, or me personally, has consumed in the last year, right? Like several documentaries, books, maybe not all, you know, literally sponsored by Nike, but I mean, Nike. There are brands I think that are doing it and doing it well. So
I worked at Gatorade for like 7 years before this role, and we idolize Nike. But yeah, I think what we realized too is that if we want to get to know our consumers or the people we serve better, to get them to want to be closer to us, we have to provide something of value, right?
it's still a value exchange.
Yeah, it's
I
still
mean,
a value
always
exchange,
will be, yeah.
especially if we want their personal information. Okay, they know that's valuable. What are you giving me, Gatorade, right? And so we have to come up with, well, what is the value we can add? How about practice tips? How about training? How about hydration information? How about we'll help you improve your game, right? That's something that's valuable information, that's on brand, and it lets them know that they're getting something in exchange for getting closer to us.
So do you see a breakdown in media outlets in which they're going to need to bend to that content for you guys? That there'll just be more custom marketing, that, you know, the banner or the 30-second video will go away, you're just going to need to be integrated with 7 to 10 consolidation walled gardens, and you'll have your own worlds within theirs and leverage off their brands? I don't know. Again, this is the future. There's no wrong answer. No wrong
I'm
answer.
going to answer knowingly like a futurist and say, yeah, I think that's one possible future. But I don't know where that power will consolidate. I don't know if it will be in brands. I don't know if it will be in retailers, right? Maybe it'll be in the Amazons of the world. I don't know where power will consolidate, but I think it's worth thinking about several scenarios.
Do you guys want to comment on retail media networks for the audience?
We
Is
have
it a
one.
flash
So it will consolidate with retailers.
At lunch today, we were speaking a little bit about how much of the share a retailer is going to take away from the other open internet and the first-party data. So do we see a demise of that because of the first-party data you bring to bear?
I think there's endless opportunity there, and as a CPG brand, I long for continued kind of development of that world, because I think there are missing pieces, and
For the access of the data specifically?
access to data, partnerships with retailers. Like, we will always value our customers a ton, and our customers value us, and we are. There is only upside for us in that world developing more and more. It's expensive and laborious for us to try to do it ourselves. So we need the ecosystem to continue to evolve.
Yeah, I think we have a lot. I mean, we have a lot of room to grow still in that space for sure. I think there's, like, especially as you think about, omni-channel, right, as being probably where things are going to be in the future for not store signage, right, for brand or store placement necessarily. It's going to be website placement, or how easy it is to find your product in search and all that piece of it that is still, I think, made a lot of advances, so it has a lot of room to grow.
So with all of that, then the brand value, brand messaging to create the confidence that comes with Walgreens becomes even more important. So you got to continue to build a brand, right? So it's never going to go away. The awareness piece.
Yeah, and I mean, for consumers, this is a lot too, and the brands are a
Yeah.
shortcut to information, so they don't have to learn everything about everything. Brand is a shortcut, and so they'll continue to need brands that are shortcuts. And we as marketers then just need to make sure that we're making it an actual shortcut. We say consistent things about our brand over time, and we don't, act outside of our box and all of that, so that it continues to work as a shortcut.
Yeah, it's interesting, Andrea, earlier you were talking about kind of the role of the brand. And I think that's the role of the brand, and knowing the role of the brand is going to continue to be really, really important, whether that's awareness, making sure people have it, or like making sure they have the right message about the brand. I think that's something that won't go away.
Totally. So in 1964, they asked Pablo Picasso what he thought about computers. And he said, they're useless. They only know the answers. And so I heard that quote from a guy named Garry Kasparov, who was the chess champion of the world. He lost to IBM Big Blue, whatever they Watson in the chess match. The first one to lose to the computer. A long way of getting into AI. The future of this question is, so what do you guys think about AI? Is it going to help? Is it just this large language modeling that's just dumb, it's putting together words with no context and it hallucinates left and right? Do you see it being part of the play moving forward within your organizations? And how?
I mean, I'm sure it will in all kinds of ways from Walgreens. I think from a marketing perspective, probably not surprising, we'll probably start more on the creative side, right? Copywriting, I think we're already using some tools for subject line creation and that kind of stuff. Obviously behind the scenes, right, in media optimization, and I think that's already happening, but in terms of kind of whatever taking over my job, probably not yet. I think someone still needs to be in charge of the algorithm, in charge of the AI, right? We're just there's so many now. I mean, probably not surprisingly that privacy concerns are rising at the same time that AI is growing, right? I think they're probably connected there, and you just can't just let machines go and run rampant without some kind of checks and balances.
My daughter said the funniest thing that reminded me of AI. I'm just coming off maternity leave, so I spent a lot of time with my 3-year-old, and she said randomly one day, "Mom, do you know how to operate a tow truck?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't." And she said, "Well, you're a grown-up, why not?" And I explained to her that some grown-ups do and some grown-ups don't know how to operate a tow truck. She asked me to watch a video on how to do it on YouTube, which we found in seconds, and then we both became educated on how to operate a tow truck. And she said, she calls my wife Ema, she said, "Well, when I'm a grown-up, I am going to operate a tow truck. Ema, you just do computers." And that was it just reminded, my first thought was, yeah, we just do computers. And there will always probably need to be somebody who just does computers. and there has to be a human. Yes. And I suppose it's the punchline, but also AI is, you still need people to do the computers. So we just need to get more efficient at how we do the computers.
Exactly. It's funny, AI is just another tool.
Yeah.
Hopefully, an efficient one. Hopefully one that we, look at and learn, so it's not just a black box. I think of it as approach AI like you would approach a cat you don't know. It could be a wonderful experience. Could be not. So great, right? And AI, right? AI is already making huge differences. Generative AI, I think we're not there. We're not all the way there. There's a lot to do yet, but I regard it as another tool. and to the points that they were making, right? Like, it doesn't, think critically like humans do. It doesn't have like an ethical center point like humans hopefully do. If you ask it for an efficient solution, it may do that, and we may regret it.
Well, it's useless without the query, right? I mean, just like Google, just a blank page until you put in the query. So there's always this human engagement as part of it. One of the things that my company does, amongst things, is dynamic creative optimization, and we integrated with ChatGPT for brands so that they could start playing with certain copy, to your point, and we automatically uploaded it to the banners live and all that other jazz. And it outperformed the human-based copywriting 10 to 1.
I believe that.
It outperformed it. But the key thing was the people still needed to choose what audience segment they were going to target. So we had no idea what audience segment. So that brings me to my audience segmentation question. Where are we going to get the signals from the audiences? Do they give out more in exchange? How many audience segments are too many for your brands? Too few? Are we getting more narrow? Are you going to go broader? Where's audience segmentation going?
Yeah, I go back to the principles of how you grow brands, right? So I'm probably not quoting anything new here, but if you divide your audience into so many tiny pieces, then how are you going to spread your resources to go against all of that? And we have to remember that most brands, at least CPG at least, need to continuously bring in new people. And so you have to think smartly about, well, for my audience, what's my job with them? And there's only so many jobs to be done, right? So, don't get cute about Uber segmentation unless there's a real purpose behind it.
Yeah, I think we've kind of coming around to that as well. Like, we were on a very big path, kind of like personalization at scale, right? Trying to be able to have that right message for every unique individual, but you lose a lot of efficiency doing that, and in a lot of, at least some of our paid media campaigns, the messaging between our audiences isn't dramatically different enough to kind of justify that kind of personalization, because the amount of resources it takes to develop the creative, that can be solved by AI, but that you still have to monitor it and set it up correctly and all that stuff, and I think the trade-off isn't quite there. So, but that doesn't say that we don't have very sophisticated segmented audiences, and it really depends on what's the goal of the campaign. Is it more of a mass awareness type of thing, or is it something that we have to be very specific to a particular Medicaid customer who lives in Florida? That's the audience. So we do a variety of both.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna add anything. Exactly.
You have to be able to speak.
Yeah, but so as you guys are talking, I was thinking about our examples, and we have brands that we hope are in every household, and some brands that are in nearly every household at some point during the year, and then we have brands like Lemonhead. It's a lemon flavored candy. I love Lemonhead. When we test Lemonhead with the general candy consumer, it does okay, and eventually we figured out, which sounds really obvious. Well, when we have variety packs of anything, lemon is usually the worst performing flavor. People who like lemon really like it. People who don't like it don't really like it. So why are we targeting a general candy consumer or a potential candy consumer for Lemonhead? Why don't we figure out that's a different challenge, right? But when we think about purposeful segments, like you were saying, it's not quite the same as your example, but it's similar, right? It's like how do we figure out who likes lemon and talk to those people, which is where retail media comes in.
Sorry.
You can't tell us now. It's brilliant.
It's just
it's an inappropriate.
That's for dinner. Okay, so you can snap your fingers, and something within your environment for your job changes to make your life easier. What is that thing? Moving forward.
Can I ask for a budget?
No budget. any budget. You're-
Okay, but I'll be more specific, like, why do I want it? I mean, so, in PepsiCo, right, like, we really value the more, or the now, and we've had like, huge minimums on like how much a first year innovation should do, right, before we'll even put it on a Pepsi truck. You know, there's a phrase that everyone knows, fewer, bigger, better. Okay, that's cool. That, you know, we better do that. That's how the numbers work to grow a company of PepsiCo's size. Fewer initiatives, bigger initiatives, better initiatives. You know, innovation, fewer, bigger, better innovations. You know, but the thing is that if we want to really be agile and plan for the future and be ready, we've got to be prepared to experiment, to have options on the table, and those things might not be ready for right now. But if we squash a culture that doesn't allow for that, then we're going to be caught off guard, you know, at some point, because those little things, those little guys, they're the ones who are out there thinking about how do I take share from PepsiCo, and they'll figure it out if we're not thinking about it too. So anyway, that's what I want budget for. I want to be able to protect for a little bit of experimentation.
So more product innovation, full
Budget.
stop, and faster. And on the budget, do more.
Yeah, I mean a protected budget for experimentation, so that people feel okay to do that. So that you don't have to only come up with the ideas that are going to be 100 million in year one. you know, let's practice. Let's get smarter about trying some new things that are smaller.
This just came up recently, but it would be great to have like a way to like pull all of our audiences ourselves and not have to rely on other teams and like see how big they are. So like, that'd be great.
Time saving.
That's a great answer. I thought those are both actually really good answers. So I like those. Very tactically, I think we're struggling, or I personally am struggling with a lot of like integration type of stuff. Technical, yes, but very much like team integration. As we get really big, that gets very difficult. So some sort of magic wand just to make everybody just integrated into things, or a giant budget for yeah, something like that. But you know, I think the data gap is really real for CPG, and it's a constant struggle. And I think it's something. There's a lot of really interesting solutions. You can spend all your time learning about them, and actually implementing them and seeing success is hard. So I think some sort of solution there would be really helpful. And there's a lot of kind of heroes on the scene, and I think we're still trying to kind of figure out how we pull it all together. Still, we're still kind of left as integrators of that.
Right. All right, one more question before I ask a question. Get your questions ready, because we have time for 1 or 2 questions. My question is, what's your favorite movie? Or something that you're watching that you really like?
Oh, okay, thank you. I've been watching The Bear.
The Bear.
Okay, so people, you never know all these streaming services. You don't know if what you're watching is popular or not. I feel like the character development's really good. The analogies for life are really good. The chaoticness is a little stressful, but and the Chicago settings.
I sort of thought about my favorite movie is, and I'm not really much of a horror person in general, but Stanley Kubrick's Shining is probably like the weirdest, creepiest kind of movie ever. So that one.
Awesome call.
Well, the data coming out of my household would say that my favorite movie must be Encanto. But no, like if I get to watch my own TV, I pick things like Enola Holmes and Only Murders in the Building. So like I kind of like mysteries, but not too heavy.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Please.
Yeah, you spoke about AI and kind of putting things into ChatGPT and then getting, subject lines or copy lines, whatever it might be.
Yep.
How do you manage brand safety with that?
You need brand guidelines to begin with, and then you got to make sure they can match. So you can actually use ChatGPT, be like, here are my brand guidelines. please put together a copy against these.
Okay, but at the same time then, how do you protect maybe your brand secret sauce if you're putting that into?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's two things. So first of all, if you're using the free version of ChatGPT, they own it.
Right.
So whatever you put into there, you got to be super duper careful. But you can also get a private version where you own the IP. And then the second part of the answer is you can't unless you do that. So there's really one answer. So clearly our future is bright. Thank you so much for joining us.